Hello everybody, this is Custom MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a bunch of custom Magic the Gathering cards created by users of the r/custom magic subreddit. So Magic cards are really fun, and it's really fun to see new ones, and sometimes the community has these really good ideas. And so what I did is I compiled a bunch of the top rated cards, and I am going to break down what they do, some problems I see with the cards. Is it balanced? Is it in the right colors? I'm basically going to give you my thoughts on it, and a lot of the time I'll tell you why I think that it's a card that could actually be printed. So why don't we jump into the first card? First, we have Guard Duty. So you can see who made the card. The Reddit username will be in the upper left corner. Obviously, I didn't make these cards, so I want to give credit to the people who did. This is Guard Duty. It's a 4-cost white sorcery, and it says put a defender counter on up to 3 target creatures. Now, okay, I think this might be a little too powerful. When you think about it, Pacifism is a 2-cost white enchantment, and it says the creature can't attack or block, and it's only 1 creature. Here you're paying 4 mana, and you're putting defender counters on 3 things. So you are, at that rate, you're getting 3 pacifisms. The only catch is they can still block. So, you might say, okay, that's balanced. You get 3 creatures instead of 2, or instead of 3 creatures instead of 2 for 4 mana. And, they can still block. But you have to think about the fact that, pacifism, an enchantment, can be destroyed. This is a lot harder to manipulate. For instance, if they have 3 really big creatures and you put defender counters on all of them, they have to be able to remove those counters or they're pretty much done for. Those creatures in particular. Versus if they have pacifism, if they draw a destroy target artifact, or not artifact, destroy target enchantment, they can still attack. So I think this might be a little too overpowered, but I don't know. This would be something you'd have to test in game design and test it out. Next, we have the Natalia Duo. It's a 1 blue-black legendary creature human rogue 2/3, and whenever an opponent discards 1 or more cards, investigate. So you're going to want to run this in a deck that has a lot of discard effects, whether they be target opponent discards 2 cards, or look at opponent's hand, they discard 1 of them. Make sure it's just a discard, not exile. And of course, clues are artifact tokens with 2, sacrifice this artifact to draw a card. So pretty good. And then you can sacrifice 5 clues, and you may cast target card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Now, I think this is a really interesting commander. First off, it is 3 mana, which is a little bit powerful in the fact that, there's people are still going to have a lot of cards in their hand, and I'm looking at this from a commander perspective. You'll notice in this video it goes non-legendary, legendary, non-legendary, legendary, and I'm mostly looking at these cards from a commander perspective because that's where a lot of custom commander cards fit best. Now, here, okay, whenever an opponent discards 1 or more cards, let's break down that part. I like that. It's very cool. One thing to note is that you are basically saying you lose a card, I draw a card. So that can be a dangerous thing. You're basically gaining 2 things of card advantage. Now, in a game, the effects you're going to want to play, let's say you're building around this, you're going to want to play effects that make each player discard 1 card. You don't want them to discard 2 cards because if an opponent doesn't have any cards, they can't discard and you can't create clues. So you don't want to drain their hand too quickly. You want to, take 1 card, take 1 card, take 1 card. If it said whenever an opponent discards any number of cards, investigate that many times, that'd be different. But you want to take away cards 1 at a time, which I think is an interesting, idea. And then you can sacrifice 5 clues to play or to cast target card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. So that could be a big creature, a big enchantment, artifact, even an instant or sorcery. Which also means that if an opponent has a counter spell in their graveyard, you can sacrifice 5 clues at instant speed and just cast that. So I think that's interesting. Again, might be a little too powerful. So I might want to tone this down, but who knows? Again, this is something where I think it's on the border of being too powerful, and it would be something you'd have to play with to see its true power. Next, we have Kerr, the Grand Trader. This is a 6-cost black and red legendary planeswalker Kerr. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 10 or more loyalty counters on it, you lose the game. Very interesting. it starts at 3 loyalty. So the idea here is instead of it's a planeswalker that will eventually lower itself down by using its big abilities, it's you don't want to hit 10. So maybe you don't use his +1 if you don't need to, but his +1 is +1, draw card, it deals 2 damage to any target, which is a very good +1. However, if you use it 7 times, you lose the game, assuming your opponents don't attack it. But it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, do I attack his planeswalker? If you can't kill it, you probably won't attack it, because then you're just lowering its loyalty, which means that it can do more abilities. So you either have to be able to kill it or let it keep going. Then it has a +2, and it says each opponent sacrifices 2 creatures, so it can come in, make each opponent sacrifice 2 creatures multiple times, not obviously in one turn, but comes in, you can do it 5, 7, 9, and then it's sat there at 9 loyalty, and you just never have to plus it up again. So I think that downside of you lose the game can be really mitigated, because, well, you're just not going to move it up to 9. You just leave it at 9 and hope no one can proliferate. Now, obviously, you're going to want to run this in a deck that has ways to deal damage to like any target, so that if you need to in an emergency, you can, activate it and damage Kerr. For instance, his +7 will instantly kill you. Not instantly, at the beginning of your next upkeep, it will kill you. So you have to be able to like get someone to attack it, or like, deal damage to it somehow so you don't die. But, this card is a very interesting card. And it's something that is very different to all other planeswalkers, and that's why I thought I would include it here. Yeah, I really enjoyed this kind of design where you're kind of inverting what planeswalkers usually do. Again, I'm going to say this. It might be a little too powerful, but for 6, it feels maybe appropriate. It's just that each opponent sacrifices 2 creatures. I may have pushed that up to a +3, so you can only do it twice before you're, at a bad loyalty number. But, yeah. Just that might be one thing I would change, or I'd make it each player sacrifices 2 creatures, because we do have something like Liliana from War of the Spark, who does say each player sacrifices creatures as a minus that almost kills her, and it's each player, not just each opponent. So, and she does also cost 6. So yeah, that might be something I would nerf a little. Next, we have Cedia the Sculptress. It's a 1 red-white legendary creature, human artisan. Pay 2, tap, create a token that's a copy of another target legendary creature, except it's an artifact. It is no longer a creature. So, what is interesting here is that you can take a creature. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to make sculptures of your opponent's commanders. That's the idea here, is you're going to play this, and then, if someone's going to play their 4-drop commander, or someone's going to play Joda or something, obviously you're in Boros here, but you're going to pay 2 and tap, and you're going to get an artifact version of it. So it means you don't care about power and toughness, you only care about the abilities printed on the cards. And what that means is that you can essentially just take other people's stuff, or like take your own stuff. For instance, say you have a really awesome creature, but you don't want it to die to a creature removal spell. Say someone's about to board wipe. You can pay 2, tap this to create an artifact version of it. Obviously, you'd have to sacrifice 1 for the legendary rule, but you just keep the artifact version, and then you have something that's much harder to kill. So I think that this is a very interesting card. We saw something similar with it in my last video, where I talked about all custom commanders, where we had like a glass blower, and I really like the design of this card. I don't think it's too powerful. The fact that it is a 1/3 for 3 that doesn't even do anything when it enters the battlefield does like really nerf it. I don't think it's too powerful. I think it's pretty good. If I had to say one thing, it would be use the legendary frame. That's my one criticism of it. But yeah, this is very nice. Or maybe add some sort of other ability, like, I don't know, give it first strike. I'm not sure, but yeah. Next, we have Canine Domestication. It's a 3-cost white enchantment. It says wolves, foxes, and jackals you control are dogs in addition to their other types. So this is obviously created in reference to Core Set 2021, with hounds being changed to dogs. And what they're saying is wolves, foxes, and jackals are all forms of dogs, and you can domesticate them using this enchantment. Now, what that also allows you to do is basically give wolves, foxes, and jackals a +1/+1 in vigilance. So I like cards like this, and I like cards like Arcane Adaptation, which is a blue enchantment that lets you turn basically all creatures in your deck and on the battlefield into a specific type of creature. And that's cool, but the thing is, okay, you're going to build your dog deck, right? And then you're going to throw in wolves, foxes, and jackals. But if you don't pull this card, those are not part of your deck. Like, they don't work and function with your commander. They're cool with this, but what this would be more likely used as is as a wolf, fox, or jackal card, not as part of a dog deck, which is where I see the problem with this design. Because again, yeah, okay, cool, this is in here to make everything dogs, but like, why aren't they dogs in the first place? So I think that's a big issue with this. This would really only see play in a wolf, fox, or jackal deck, and I really don't think that was the intended purpose of this card. So I feel like there could have been a way to maybe redo this slightly, but maybe make it maybe make it a legendary creature, and make it a creature like Davriel, who I know is a planeswalker, but whatever, Canine Domesticator, and then it has a similar ability, but I think having it like this is just not great. Next, we have Anta the Watcher. It's a green, white legendary creature dragon flying, and whenever it attacks, you may have it. Whenever a creature attacks, you may have Ancillary fight it. It being a 3/4, the fighting doesn't really mean much, but it does mean that if you boost this up, it can be very devastating. Give it lifelink. Very cool. Those are the kind of things you're going to want to do. Boost it up, give it Death Touch, lifelink, and it makes it very hard for anything to attack you. Next, we have Okra's Trickery. It's a 1 green-blue enchantment. It says when it enters the battlefield, target player becomes the monarch, so you can either make yourself or your opponent. And then creatures controlled by the monarch are green elks with base power and toughness 3/3. They lose all of their card types and creature types. So, if an opponent has a bunch of really scary creatures, not because they're, a bunch of them, but just a couple really scary creatures, boom, now they're all 3/3s. Or you can put it on yourself, and now no one wants to hit you because they don't want to become the monarch, because then all their stuff becomes 3/3s, kind of, and maybe you boost all of your stuff, you throw this in a token deck, and now all your 1/1s are now 3/3s, and you're the monarch. So in the right deck, this is really powerful, but outside of the right deck, this kind of just creates an interesting gameplay dynamic where you want to be the monarch, but that might nerf your whole board. So keep that in mind, and that makes it harder to keep the monarch if all your stuff is 3/3s and everyone else's are bigger. So keep that in mind. Next, we have Shion, Sublime Instructor. It's a 4-cost Boros legendary creature human monk for 3, and it says with the second spell each player casts each turn costs 2 less to cast, so it's encouraging you to play more than 1 spell per turn, which is kind of ramping in Boros, which is kind of cool. And then whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. So this is very similar to Mangara from Core Set 2021, where you're allowed to draw cards in white, or in this case Boros, if your opponent is the one controlling when you draw those cards. So very cool. This would see a lot of play, I feel like, just as a generic Boros, I'm going to draw cards and make things cheaper kind of commander. So yes, I really like the design of this. Next, we have Prestidigitation. Sorry. It's a 2-cost white instant. It says counter target spell you control unless its controller has you draw 2 cards. So this is in a very similar vein, which is why they're next to each other. Your opponent is controlling. This is either pay 2. Now, I'm going to talk about the issue I find with this card. Pay 2, counter target spell you don't control. Pay 2, draw 2 cards. Both of which would be really good blue spells. And the fact that it's white, now you don't get the choice. So maybe you want to draw a card, but they're not going to let you. Or you wanted to counter it, but you don't get to. But the fact that I could see this being blue, make this 1 in a blue, this feels like a blue card. Make this 2 in a white, this feels like a white card. It just feels a little too powerful to be white because both options are really good. So keep that in mind. Next, we have Zernax Galaxy Swallower. It's a 18, so 15, colorless, legendary creature, elder alien, 16/16, and it can't be countered. It is indestructible, and whenever you cast it, exile target permanent. So already this feels very Eldrazi-ish in the fact that it is indestructible and you're exiling permanents when you cast it, and then at the beginning of each combat, exile X target permanents, where X is the number of cards exiled with it. So here's the idea. Now there's no way to make this cost anything cheaper, so you're probably going to cheat this out. But you don't want to do that because his ability sets is you might want to cheat this out. It is a 16/16 indestructible, but the idea here is that when you cast him, you're going to exile target permanent. So that means he has exiled a total of 1 permanent. Then the next turn, you're going to exile 1 permanent because that's how many you've exiled. Or I guess if you cast this at your pre-combat main phase, whatever. Then the next turn you'll be like, oh, you've exiled 2 permanents. Now exile 2 more. Now exile, that would be 4 more, and then 8 more, and then 16 more. And the idea is that eventually you're going to have to target your stuff. So you can't, it doesn't say an opponent controls. So you're either going to have to start exiling your lands, or you're eventually going to have to exile him. So he's kind of like snowballing to this giant effect. It's very, very interesting. It would be a fun commander to build around. It'd be very difficult to do. I'd be more likely to throw this in like a Joda deck, but yes, very cool. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys thought of all of these custom commander cards, or just custom cards, in the comments down below. What did you like? What did you not like? Are some of them horribly overpowered? Let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.